This was the best airline layover of my life. I had the opportunity to travel to Austria for work and meet some of my colleagues there in the beautiful countryside called Langenlois, west of Vienna. But I couldn't fly directly back to Washington, D.C., and had to stay 18 hours in the United Kingdom. So instead of pouting about it or shacking up at the airport Hilton, I seized the 6 hours available to me to visit the home, grave, church, and special places of author C.S. Lewis. We talk about Lewis a lot on Geeky Stoics. He was the most influential Christian apologist of the 20th century, philosopher, author of the Chronicles of Narnia, the Space Trilogy, and Screwtape Letters. His work has been so valuable to me since I was very young, and that bond has really only sweetened with time. With the help of my local friend Mike, truly the finest Brit the King has on offer, I caught a ride from the George Inn in Windsor up to Oxford. We started with C.S. Lewis's home, called the Kilns, about 20 minutes from the heart of the university and tucked into the back of a residential neighborhood. It's a beautiful cottage home where Lewis lived much of his adult life as an Oxford academic and author. A few residential scholars live in the home every year and do manage the upkeep. It was sadly the wrong day for a tour inside, but the groundskeeper led us into the yard and garden to walk around and see what Lewis's exterior world was like. I think about this stuff all the time. Aslan, Screwtape, Mere Christianity, and Miracles. To be in that place was remarkable. C.S. once said, "Aim at heaven and you will get earth thrown in. Aim at earth and you will get neither." And the Kilns is a place where someone was certainly aiming high. Now, before leaving, there was a secluded path at the back of the house to the publicly accessible C.S. Lewis Nature Reserve. It's a wild place, loud from bird life, but still so quiet in the way a piece of forest can be when it is most alive. The pond was coated in green, the brush was dense. This family of ducklings sat on a log in the water with their mother and never budged as I got closer. Nature never taught me that there exists a God of glory and of infinite majesty. I had to learn that in other ways, but nature gave the word glory a meaning for me. I could have stayed in this place for hours, but we didn't have that kind of time. I did have a flight to catch, so before leaving the Kilns, I noticed the gardener had trimmed some weeds and flowers for disposal, and I plucked the sweet-smelling top from one of the weeds most present at Lewis's home, Canadian goldenrods, I think. Our next stop was his resting site at Holy Trinity Church, just a few minutes away with no parking lot or access by car that I could discern. I find that added layer of friction so appealing in terms of going to church. Every visit has to be a small pilgrimage or a minor act of rebellion against worldly things and basic comforts and conveniences. We entered the grounds and took a few minutes to find his stone. This church is still a place to pray and meet on Sunday, and you can get a sense of C.S. Lewis's view during sermons, which is not much of a view at all. The woman told us there that the plaque on the pew indicating his preferred seat is actually incorrect. I remembered this story from his biography, written by Alistair McGrath. Lewis preferred to be behind a stone pillar so as not to offend the pastor with his grimaces or disagreeable looks during sermons, which is honestly highly relatable. Lewis worked hard to not get caught up in being judgmental in church and using that as a shield from engaging the material or the heart of the matter, something which he satirizes in the Screwtape Letters. Now, Mike and I then made a donation for a postcard and left for Oxford University's Magdalene College, where Lewis was an influential and divisive instructor, namely due to his public popularity. Definitely a case of tall poppy syndrome. Now, you will note it is spelled Magdalene College. It is pronounced Magdalene. It's easy to see how Lewis made an exception for this place while generally disliking England as a whole, at least in comparison to his birthplace in the north of Ireland. We had lunch at King's Arms Pub, scooped up a few books at Blackwell's, dropped by the lamp post known to have inspired the lamp post in Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe, and also we visited Addison's Walk, a nature path inside Magdalene College if you pay €10 to go inside. Addison's Walk is where Lewis came to once again believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ and the Christian faith after a period of darker years marked by atheism. In 1931, he walked the path with J.R.R. Tolkien, who would soon publish The Hobbit, and Hugo Dyson. They persuaded Lewis that his love of pagan mythology, Greek goddesses, and Norse legends was part of how God prepared human hearts to receive a Savior in Jesus of Nazareth. Lewis had always struggled to reconcile Christianity with the chaotic history of man's many gods and stories. This idea resonates with me as someone who has always wondered why stories like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars have only served to draw me closer to God. It's because the creative act, even pagan art, is an expression of God-given yearning. The claim is that Christ redeemed these yearnings and fulfilled the myths we spent centuries crafting. Lewis changed in these woods, and I can't put into words what it felt like to walk there with Mike, who also wanted to talk about God's nature, and it was honestly one of the best experiences of my life. The book my sister gave me years ago, Mere Christianity, which laid the intellectual foundation for Narnia, began here and found its fulfillment at the Kilns. I've known Lewis since I was a child and got closer to his mind as a teenager with the renewed popularity of the Chronicles of Narnia, but in this chapter of life, I feel I've come to know his heart. As my travel companion on this trip to Austria and the UK, I brought with me Seneca's Letters from a Stoic. In it, he says, "Whoever says, 'I have lived,' receives a windfall every day he gets up in the morning." I'm thankful for that day in Oxford. If I didn't get another, it would have been enough.